I think you've seen history in the making today. UKIP's elected their next leader, following on from Nigel Farage. Yes, the new leader is female. That might shock a few people. It's going to dispel all the issues, I hope, about chauvinism and misogyny and such. But I'm delighted to see you. I will take as many questions as I possibly can in the time we've got allocated. And just try and keep them, please, to policy, process, and people. And I will gladly respond accordingly. So and I believe Gawain is going to... Yes, John.
John Pinard, BBC News. You are barely known to much of the country. Can you fill Nigel Farage's shoes, and can you unite your party?
Well, John, you've asked two questions, and I'm used to you splitting yours, as you always do. In terms of filling Nigel's shoes, I've got no idea what shoe size he is, so I don't know about that. In terms of what I've got to do is make sure that UKIP is a winning machine. And as I announced earlier, as far as I'm concerned, we are the opposition party in waiting, and I will do my damnedest to actually ensure that I have a higher profile and that if, as you put it, I step into Nigel's shoes. But you heard earlier when you asked me another question, my plan is 100 days. That's what I'm focused on. That's what I want to see, the sort of delivery that will ensure that our membership is confident that we are capable of being a winning machine. In doing that and in delivering that, I believe my profile and my awareness will go higher. Just remember, though, how many people can name the Liberal Democrat leader? Very few. And somebody actually made the point earlier on in a question, or in terms of a response, my awareness level is probably higher than some of the heads of government in Europe. So I'm quite happy with where I am at the moment.
Unite your party. People like Paul Nuttall on the platform today were saying the party must unite or lose its way or die.
I don't know why Paul said that. I'm somewhat surprised that he decided to choose those words. I'm not aware of anything more than an opposition narrative that would like to portray us as being ununited. I am more than happy with the way that our MEPs are conducting themselves and the fact that they are speaking as a group, and I'm sure that will also go down to our councillor level and our assembly members level as well. When we're talking about this, though, we're talking about a new leaf, a new book, a new era. So just give us the time, please, and don't, please, continue the narrative, the negative narrative that the opposition would like to seed out there.
Libby Wiener, ITV News.
Hello, Libby.
You've only got one MP at the moment.
Yes.
What is your ambition? You're saying you want to be the main party of opposition, but what would success look like to you? 50 MPs, 100 MPs?
Well,
how
first
many are
of
you aiming for before the next decade is out?
Well, within the next few weeks, we should be fighting 4 by-elections. That's going to be an interesting test, isn't it? My belief is that Theresa May will go for a very early, possibly snap general election, maybe as early as next May. I did actually think she might go this autumn. I've pushed away from that idea. But in which case, we will field candidates in every single constituency, and we'll be reminding voters that their incumbent MP might well have been a Remainiac. And that's going to help us enormously.
Robert Nisbet, Sky News. Are you expecting Nigel Farage to do some backseat driving?
No, not at all.
Are you going to take any advice from him, or do you want to completely close his chapter and open yours? Can he offer anything to
I think both Nigel and I made it very, very plain that there would be help, if you like, running between us. I will be seeking his opinions. That's, I'm going to be honest about that. Why wouldn't I? The legacy he's bequeathed to this party, the experience, the knowledge he's got, I would be absolutely nuts to ignore that. But I'm not going to be looking to him being a backseat driver. I will consult him as I see fit, but I will be making my own decisions.
Mrs. James,
you can call me Diane, Michael.
No, I don't believe in calling politicians by their first name.
Oh, okay.
Mrs. James, during the contest, you avoided any hustings with your opponents. You excluded television cameras from many of your meetings. Doesn't UKIP require a bold, courageous leader who takes on their opponents rather than avoids them?
Michael, first of all, if you don't mind, I'm going to correct you because you're totally wrong with what you just said. I ran my own series of national events. At no point were the media or press excluded from those events. In fact, there were events where members of the press turned up in advance, booked to interview me, and I kindly and was very, very pleasant.
There were occasions when television cameras were excluded, and you didn't hold any
could you
hold hustings with your opponents. Is that going to be your style as UKIP leader? Not to hold any, not to take on your other party leaders, not to engage in debate with other party leaders?
Well, I tell you what, if Channel 4 would like to put together the first leaders' debate, knowing full well that Prime Minister Theresa May will not take up that challenge, then, you know, maybe if you would like to organise it, and maybe if you would like to invite me, I will consider it, Michael.
Why didn't you take on your opponents in this election?
Hello, Monica Fla from Agence France Presse. Are you worried that Mr. Aaron Banks is speaking about creating a new movement that could compete with UKIP?
No, not at all. No, not at all. He's talking about a movement. I've become leader of a political party. Completely two different entities.
Owen Bennett, Huffington Post. Your one MP, Douglas Carswell, has not been particularly welcomed by many in UKIP in recent months. Are you planning to have a sit-down with him to try and thrash out the differences that he has with the party?
Of course I do. You know, every single member is entitled to ask me for a meeting. The priority is going to be with our elected councillors, our assembly members, and certainly my priority, as I explained in my speech, my priority is going to be those that are seeking re-election next year in roles that they already hold, or those that are going to rise above their current position, put themselves forward as candidates. They're going to be my priorities. But if Douglas would like to suggest a meeting, I will happily entertain it, and we can in all likelihood, we might well have a meeting next week. It's all up to his availability as well as my own.
So it's an open invitation then to Douglas Carswell?
Yes, of course there is. Yeah.
2 points, if I may. You just mentioned the opportunity of coming by-elections. Does that mean that UKIP has now decided to stand in the Batley and Spen by-election? Because I think the party previously said it didn't. And on a second point, you said at the start of this campaign that if there were people who disagreed with your plans for changing the constitution of this party,
yes,
they could find their P45 and start looking for a new career.
Absolutely.
For those who oppose your plan to get rid of the NEC, is that your message to them? Get out, look for a new career outside UKIP?
No, the message to everybody, and I made that point, you know, you've been very selective with the words that you've just highlighted, to absolutely everybody. They can continue being a distraction. They continue, if they wish, going against the way the party wants to operate and the success that I believe this party is entitled to enjoy. If they don't want to be part of that machine, then for those individuals, and they know who they are, then they may wish to seek a different party affiliation, or they may seek to do something completely different in terms of their career. It's ultimately a choice for those individuals to make. As far as I'm concerned, everybody is welcome to stay in this party. I actually want people to contribute, but I want people contributing positively, not negatively.
You've clearly got individuals in mind. Which ones?
I don't think there's any secret there at all. Everybody is aware that there are certain individuals who have, for instance, fallen out with Nigel in the past, who've made comments that have been interpreted as being negative, that have actually fueled the opposition narrative in terms of really negative soundings for UKIP. Those individuals know who they are, and we'll leave it at that if you don't mind.
Batley and Spen?
We will abide by the decision that we've taken. At the moment, only two parties have said they will not fight that by-election. Now, if, for instance, the Conservatives suddenly change their decision, or indeed if the Liberal Democrats do, then of course it completely changes the scenario.
Thank you. Thanks. Andy Bell, 5 News. There's now a Conservative Party in government promising to deliver Brexit and grammar schools. Why is anyone who might be described as conservative-minded who's with UKIP, why should they stick with UKIP now? There's a government in place that's delivering what they want, isn't there?
Well, first of all, the Conservative Party is not promising to deliver Brexit. You've only got to look at the backpedalling that's been going on in the last week or two. Just look at Amber Rudd, who's continuing the whole Project Fear message that the Tory Party seems to enjoy. And remember that the Prime Minister was on the Remain side. So my view is the Tory Party cannot be trusted with true Brexit, and I made that point in my speech today. Then the second part of your question, please.
Well, it was following up, but there's also grammar schools. There's a whole agenda which has clearly changed from the previous.
Okay, and I made the point. Where did they get the grammar schools from? There was no grammar schools in the Tory party manifesto in their 2015 general election. That came from the UKIP general election manifesto, as did the 2% on defence. If they want to keep on stealing our policies, absolutely fantastic. But if they would rather come over and join the party that originates those policies, I'd be even more pleased.
But the point is they can deliver it. You've got one MP. You can't deliver it. They can deliver it. They're in power. That's the point.
Look, it's all going to change, is it not? We don't know. I've just made the point. We don't know when the next general election is going to be. We don't know whether the Tory party is actually so riven between the Eurosceptic and the Europhile wing that in terms of delivering Brexit, however they want to play it, might never happen. That's the role that UKIP has got in terms of holding the government to account. What I'd like to see, I would really like to see, is Douglas Carswell moving a private member's bill, for instance, that Article 50 is invoked before December. And I asked for that as UKIP's Christmas present for this year.
Dan, two quick questions there. What measures will you take as the first female leader to root out any traces of misogyny and racism within the party, which may still exist in some quarters? And the second question is, when have you last spoken to Douglas Carswell?
When did I last speak to Douglas? Probably before the summer recess. And as you know, both the EU Parliament and the UK Parliament has only just come back from summer recess. So we're talking, allowing for the summer period, probably 3 months ago, I'm guessing. In terms of this whole misogyny, chauvinism aspect, it's not something I've come across. I've got another 21 MEPs that I work with. I've been around the country with my national events. I haven't come across anything that actually matches the two words that you used. Again, I'm going to keep coming on back on this. It's a lovely bit of narrative that the opposition have tried to portray. We have done our level best as a party to root out exactly those issues. We probably got the strongest means, the strongest criteria that we apply to candidates and potential members to try and stop that happening. It's not 100%, but it's hellishly better than any of the other parties have got in place.
Congratulations on the victory, Diane.
Thank you.
You mentioned in your speech that you had experience leading companies and leading boards.
Yes.
Could you tell people a bit more about your business experience and how it equips you for...
Yes, okay. For instance, I was chair of the Surrey and Sussex CLRN. That was a board in featuring NHS trusts, both mental trusts, mental health care trusts, and also hospitals, as you would probably understand. And I chaired the board for that. In terms of my own first board director role, that was in my late 20s, when I worked for a company called PMSI. You can do your homework and find out what's happened to that company. It was taken over subsequently by Dun & Bradstreet, and then it went on to be owned by another organisation after that. And then I did work for a company called IIR, which was set up by Lord Laidlaw before he was elevated to the House of Lords. Okay? Yes.
Hello, David Crossman from BBC Newsnight.
Hello.
You are replacing one of the 3, 4, 5 best-known faces in British politics.
Yeah.
And for a lot of voters, this might be the first time they have become aware of Diane James.
Yeah.
How would you introduce yourself to the British people?
A fresh face, a fresh approach, but give me a chance.
But who are you as a person?
Exactly what you see in front of you. An MEP, been an MEP for 2 years, Justice and Home Affairs spokesperson for UKIP, held Theresa May to account for 2 years, constantly tried to expose that our police force is undermanned and under-resourced, our prison system is in a mess, our border control system is a farce, and that, quite frankly, all of the issues and changes that might have been brought in terms of our legal system, she's just overturned. So those are the sort of issues that I'd want to put across.
Cameron Davis, BBC Wales.
Hello, Cameron.
Hello. Can I ask you about the situation in Wales and how you plan to heal what's a deeply divided party in Wales, with Nathan Gill now sitting as an independent Assembly member? And secondly, do you agree with calls for him to give up one of his elected positions?
Nathan Gill has my 100% support. He's been a very, very valued member. in the European Parliament. I trust him in 100% entirely in terms of his views and his commitment to UKIP. In terms of the issues that led to him becoming an independent, my understanding is in doing that he is still only taking one salary as an elected politician. So I don't think there's any more comment to be made on that aspect.
Do you think he can do both the jobs at the same time?
Well, why not?
Because of the pressures of the jobs, because of one's based in Brussels, the other in Cardiff?
Well, I tell you what, come along to Brussels at some stage and see what a farce the whole way the European Parliament actually runs. The important aspect is that the UKIP MEPs are going to be there attending the committees. The committees are not every day. They're not there like some of the other UK colleagues who are there every single day, just attending meetings, from my point of view, without good reason. Nathan is an individual who is there when it is necessary, and as I understand it, has been in the Welsh Assembly equally when it has been necessary. So he remains and will always have my full support for the roles he undertakes.
Thanks, Diane. Mason Hall from the Daily Express. You talked about by-elections earlier. As the party leader, would you consider fighting one of those by-elections to possibly give yourself the great chance of a national platform in the House of Commons?
Well, yes, of course I will. But the one thing I've actually got to do, I've got to make sure, just like every other candidate, that I go through the selection process and actually then go through the hustings process at a constituency level to be selected. I've made it abundantly plain and clear at my national programme of meetings that I don't intend parachuting myself into a constituency unless I can prove that I have some form of affiliation with that.
Marina Mason from The Guardian. You were talking about Nigel's legacy and experience being valued in the party. What if in, say, a year's time or longer than that he decided he wanted to come back as party leader? Would you stand aside if he wanted to do that?
Well, I'm interested in your crystal ball. He made it abundantly clear today that he doesn't intend coming back. He's left that door, that option open. I totally appreciate that. But he was very, very clear with his language today. He is stepping away from the leadership role. He's handing that mantle over to myself. Simple as that.
Dan Bloom from the Daily Mirror. Sorry.
Sorry, I can't. Oh, sorry.
Very short. Two quick questions. Why have Neil Hamilton and the other leadership candidates been removed from the main stage agenda? Are they the people that are fueling the opposition narrative, perhaps? And out of curiosity, you talk about professionalism and changing a tone. Do you feel that the tone of the Breaking Point poster was right?
I'm going to deal with the latter point first, because I defended that poster even at the Wembley debate. And I will continue to defend it. If people don't want a reality check about what has been created in terms of problems of Merkel's open-door migration policy, people in those volumes, on those roads, trying to get into the European Schengen area, then quite frankly they need a big, big pinch. That picture was absolutely accurate in terms of what it showed, and I've got no problem with it at all. Your other question, just remind me?
The main stage agenda has been shaken up.
Yes, and do you know that's exactly what the new leader is able to do. It's my prerogative, and I chose to change the programme.
Why? Okay. A purge?
No, not a purge. Michael, and we're working through Gawain, if you don't mind.
Lucy Fisher.
Hi, Lucy Fisher from The Times. Many UKIP figures have identified the Northern Labour heartlands as a key opportunity for UKIP going forward.
Yes.
Some of your critics say that you will lack appeal in those places and you're restricted to appealing to a southern audience. What do you say to those people?
During my national series of events, I made it clear, I repeated every single one, that I was intending to have 2 chiefs of staff, not 2 deputies and not a single deputy. And if you want to paint a regional picture, one of those individuals will be located in the north and will effectively caretake, my quotes, let me be very clear about that, caretake the north, and the other will be supporting the south. That is the level of support that I want as the new leader, and that is how I intend running this.
Will one not be Stephen Wolfe?
Sorry?
Will it be Stephen Wolfe in the north?
I haven't yet made decisions. I will announce next week, once I've spoken to every single individual, where I would like them to be in terms of the portfolios that they hold, also hear what they would like to do and how they feel they might contribute, and also in terms of what I want them to do is appoint a deputy, so that on every single occasion, if the MEPs are, for instance, in Brussels or Strasbourg, and Theresa May does her usual, tries to leak bad news whilst we're out of the country, that we have a series of very erudite and very professional people able to handle the media here in the United Kingdom.
John Stone from The Independent. You say you want to professionalise the party. Will you continue to use the term Romaniacs?
Romaniacs? What's wrong with Romaniacs in terms of professionalism? No, I don't consider it rude at all. They even refer to themselves as the Romaniacs. So, if they want to choose a new phrase, I'll happily use that instead.
Hello there, Charlie Cooper from Politico. Your predecessor stood alongside Donald Trump and delivered a speech and seemed very happy about that. And he said he couldn't imagine ever voting for Hillary Clinton. Could you imagine voting for Hillary Clinton, and how do you feel about Donald Trump?
I could not imagine voting for Hillary Clinton. The jury for me is out on Trump. I think the American people have a very, very difficult decision to make. I don't think either of the candidates are what the American people would like to see in terms of their next president. But it's a decision for the American people to take, and as much as I really did object to Obama coming over here and telling the United Kingdom people what to do in terms of Brexit, I have no intention of guiding or commenting for Mrs. Clinton or Mr. Trump.
Helen Cat, BBC South East.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
We finally get to meet.
I know, it's fantastic. Nigel said earlier he pointed to recent by-election successes in Kent as a sign that UKIP is in rude health. But you still don't have any MPs in the region. The South East is your patch, you know it well.
Yeah.
What are you going to tackle to change that?
Well, we need, first of all, and I don't mind who it is, for an MP, Tory MP or a Lib Dem to stand down in the South East. So if you'd all like to wish me well on that, that would be absolutely great. And then we will field a candidate that is of a calibre to take on the incumbent. But I go back to the point. If you look at the South East, if we are able to remind the South East that their sitting MP or their potential MP actually doesn't want to deliver Brexit and yet they voted to leave, that's going to create a very, very interesting schism in terms of their political affiliation.
Sam Lister, Press Association. There have been lots of calls for the new leader to reunite the party and away from all these bitter divisions.
Yeah.
You don't seem to be striking a very conciliatory tone today. Are people like Douglas Carswell and Susan Evans and Neil Hamilton still welcome in your party? Is there going to be a role for you? Are you going to reach out to them?
Well, can I just correct you on that? The question was asked, when will I meet with Douglas Carswell? I made the point I'm happy to do that as soon as his diary and my diary it makes that happen. I can... Sorry?
He's here tomorrow.
Yeah, well, if he wants to sit down, I'm sure we can find the time. But, realistically, does he want to do that at conference, or wouldn't he like to take some time out and we find, a session next week in London where we can both meet, comfortable, go over the issues and decide on things. So that's my response. The same invitation extended to anybody that you've just mentioned. All I'm going to ask is some appreciation that as the new leader there's going to be a huge amount of demand on my time. I will try and prioritise accordingly, but when it comes to it, I will meet with everybody. Okay?
Hi, here, Peter Walker from The Guardian. Amongst the people who took you on the leadership challenge, one of them talked about the idea of banning burqas in public places, and someone else talked of the idea of making prisoners pay for their incarceration until they have no assets left. Would you agree with either of those points, and or do you see such a way forward for the party, or would you like to disown?
I've got no response to either of those points. They were made by two of my candidate colleagues. I've got no idea of the setting in which they made those comments. I'm not going to comment any further, thank you.
Do you agree with them?
I'm not going to comment on them any further.
3 more questions. So, firstly, the glasses there.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Espen, Norwegian Broadcasting. Going back to politics, the EU question is fading out eventually, I think. What will be the next important issue for UKIP? Will it be immigration, which seems to go well down with some of your voters?
Immigration stay. If you take a straw poll of voters out there at the moment, immigration still features probably top, if not second. But where I think we've really now got to direct some very, very big focus on is the National Health Service. You know, that, quite frankly, everything that's going on, the Tory government are managing to cover up the bad shape that that service is in. And on the basis that we've now got hospitals billions of pounds in deficit, where they've abandoned performance targets, abandoned waiting lists, abandoned treatment objectives, we need to start focusing on that as well.
William James from Reuters. You've talked about fleshing out the party's policy offering, made it one of your priorities. But you've also talked about taking votes away from Labour in the north. I'm interested in where the party's going to sit on the political spectrum once you've fleshed it out and once you've built that policy offering.
I'll tell you what, come back to me in 3 months' time when we finish the 100 days programme that I've got in mind, and I will gladly respond to your question at that stage. Okay?
But where does it need to be?
Well, it needs to be in a position where it appeals to both Conservative and Labour voters. It's as simple as that. Both of those groups of voters share very, very similar, if not the same, concerns. But top of that list, and it was shown by the scale of support for leaving across the United Kingdom. If we can put things, subjects into that context, then we will get the message right and the policies right.
And last question.
Can we have somebody who hasn't asked a question, please?
Already. Anybody else? You've probably spoken already. And Crick's taken again. Who would you like?
No, I'll take one more question from somebody who hasn't asked, please. Yes, thank you. Yeah, can you just...
Courtney from ITV Wales.
Yeah.
In the situation of the Welsh Assembly, what do you see as Neil Hamilton's future there?
For the UKIP group, and I mean the UKIP group, and also for a contribution from Nathan, for them to decide, and I would hope they will then feed back their decision to the leader and that I will be able to support it.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed.
Yep.
And I hope everybody had the opportunity. I think Diane answered all the questions straightly and honestly as you'd expect from a UKIP politician. Thank you for your time. And
yes, thank you everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.